Story 1. Your company is just two bad quarters away from firing you. It will not care about the effort you put in, the profits you generated, the sacrifices you made, or the damage to your health. Story 2. Failing to document every task, achievement, and acknowledgement you receive can be costly. Most people do not keep track, and later they cannot prove their value when it really counts. Story 3. Avoiding accountability every time you make a mistake is counterproductive. You are better off showing that you have learned from it rather than spending a significant amount of time playing defense when you are not perfect. Everyone already knows whose fault it is anyway. Story 4. Caring too much. No one at work is really worried about whether you are killing yourself. Just show up and do a decent job. The reward for hard work is more work. Story 5. Being liked is more important than your skill set. They will keep the idiot they like over the grumpy subject matter expert every day. Story 6. Going above and beyond does not always get you much besides more work. Letting people know something can take 1 hour instead of 5 will lead to accumulating more work. Story 7. Many people think hard work will get them ahead, but in reality, being liked is far more important. Story 8. Great question. Sometimes the biggest mistake is not speaking up for yourself early on. Whether it's asking for opportunities, setting boundaries, or negotiating pay. Story 9. Make yourself indispensable in your current position so you never move forward in your career because it is difficult for the company to replace you. Story 10. You stay at a job just for the paycheck and realize years later that you hate your life. Story 11. I thought my supervisor would reward my loyalty and sacrifices. There is no such thing as loyalty from your employer to you. The company will always protect itself and save money. Your boss is the same even if they are nice. Story 12. Take advantage of as much free training as possible, especially certifications and cross-training, while still getting your job done. It will make you more valuable to the company, better prepared for the job market if needed, and make your annual review easier for you and your manager. Story 13. Staying at a job that is starting to seriously harm your physical health. Story 14. I am not sure this counts as a mistake. Having a job does not mean you should stop looking for a better one. It is acceptable to take personal days to attend interviews at other companies. The real mistake is accepting a job and then not actively seeking a better opportunity. Story 15. Dating at work. Telling coworkers your business. Bringing friends and significant others around your coworkers. Story 16. Staying too long with the same company can cost you. You will see new hires brought in at higher salaries because the company already has you. You may be expected to train them without extra pay or recognition. I have a habit of becoming attached to an employer and staying far longer than is healthy. Keep your eyes on the horizon for new opportunities and do not let loyalty sabotage your potential growth. Story 17. If you earn a degree in a field you want to work in but take a job in a different field for the money, by the time you return to your original field, the degree may have effectively expired because you did not use the skills it was intended to teach. Story 18. Not respecting the perspectives of everyone causes problems. Including the perspective of each person covers many bases. Many people are too meek and do not respect their own opinions, while others do not respect other people, especially young people. Young professionals often assume the ideas they have when new to a job are new to everyone, but many so-called new ideas are actually repeats of approaches that have failed before. That is why they are not used. Respecting experienced colleagues helps avoid this. Story 19. If it is not in an email, a performance development review report, or a JIRA ticket, it did not happen. Write down your achievements, even small accomplishments, and put them in a folder labeled Achievements this year. When it comes time for your review, you can pull this evidence and it will pay dividends. Source: I work in finance. I have received a bonus every single year except the year banks were banned from giving bonuses due to coronavirus disease 2019. Story 20. At my first job, I thought the executive team would determine my entire life and that references would be crucial. In fact, associating with them hurt my reputation. Pleasing a terrible boss because you think it will help your prospects actually hurts them. Story 21. Do not trust cliché career advice. if you follow it. 1. Stay at least 2 years at a job or recruiters will consider you a job hopper. Not true. Job hopping is often how you make more money. 2. Put your head down and shut up. Not necessarily. When things go wrong, documenting everything can save you. 3. Never burn bridges. Burning bridges goes both ways. Employers also need to treat employees with dignity, or they will face high turnover. Story 22. Getting into the trades does not require college, and the pay may be decent. You are not going to get rich. You may not realize that you cannot perform heavy physical labor into your 60s or 70s, and if you make it that far, your body will be worn out. You should also have a passion for the associated lifestyle and culture. I am regretfully in the trades. Story 23. Passing up good opportunities in your 20s in order to spend more time partying, being lazy, and so on. Story 24. I'd say that thinking your coworkers are your friends is unwise. I've been at my company for almost 2 decades, and I've always maintained a boundary. My home life stays separate. No partying or worshiping together on weekends. I always ask about their kids and spouses, though. Story 25. Not taking paid time off. You earned it, and it's part of your compensation package. Story 26. Being a jerk has consequences. Even if there are no obvious immediate effects, coworkers will dislike you and you will be passed over for good projects, raises, promotions, and so on. Finding a better job in your field will be difficult. The professional world is smaller than many people realize. If you are not hurting your employer too badly, many difficult employees are quietly shadow banned or marginalized until they leave. Story 27. People burn bridges and act rudely toward colleagues on the way up, then wonder why nobody will help them when times are hard. Most businesses still operate through recommendations and networking. Your stellar curriculum vitae means nothing in a small, insular sector where everyone knows one another and knows you have burned bridges. Story 28. Avoid becoming too much of a generalist and losing your marketable skills. Hold on to your core skills, because when you enter the job market, your curriculum vitae must highlight the key points of your skill set that will appeal to employers. Keep this in mind when taking on work in your current position. Will it help or hinder your curriculum vitae? Story 29. Taking home stress for a job that could not care less about health was a big mistake. Mental peace should always matter more. Story 30. A few items from my anecdote. 1. Taking any studies or degree as if it is a lifelong path. 2. Divulging too much about your personal life to coworkers. 3. Not knowing when to stop talking in meetings if you are in that role. 4. Not knowing how to approach frustrations, whether it is the task or the person you are working with. Story 31. Staying too long in a comfortable role leads to stagnation. If you are not challenged, years can slip by before you notice. Story 32. I hate to say it, but having children has made it difficult to find work. Even many part-time jobs now require several afternoons or evenings per week, and I cannot do that. I also miss out on promotions, and some coworkers look down on me because they think they are better working parents. Story 33. Believing that making a lot of money from your job will fulfill you or make you happy is often a trap. Story 34. Do not voluntarily leave a job unless you have another one lined up. Story 35. Not changing jobs for more money. It is very rare to receive large salary increases at the same company, but if you move to a different company, it is easier for the employer to justify offering a substantial raise to a new employee. Story 36. Not investing in your own growth outside of your job is a common mistake. Many people grind for years, thinking loyalty to one company will guarantee stability, only to discover that industries and bosses change and that outdated skills leave them stuck. The earlier you treat your career like your own business, the better. Story 37. Not networking enough. A promotion is more easily secured by knowing the right people than by working hard. Story 38. In a corporate role, whatever your job, you have 2 tasks. First, make your boss look good. Second, be low maintenance while doing so. If you can master both, you will succeed. Story 39. Thinking that any of your coworkers are friends is a mistake. Spoiler alert, they are not. Story 40. What I did was leave a solid union job with tenure and seniority that would have allowed me to skate to retirement for a management position that pays considerably more but has higher stress and no job security. Story 41. Be loyal to your company. The company will not be loyal to anyone except, perhaps, its shareholders. Story 42. Getting a degree with no market value is acceptable if you find it interesting. Enjoy English literature as a hobby. Story 43. Do not accept the initial salary without negotiating. Do not give ultimatums. Instead, say something like, I have another offer at a different company, and raising my salary by X would make my decision easier. That way, if they decline, you have not burned any bridges. Story 44. Staying in a job that doesn't challenge you just because it feels safe. Story 45. Most people are stuck in the same job for a ridiculously long time and do not grow or evolve, but it is never too late. Story 46. Network as often as you can, even if you are not looking for a job. Knowing others in your industry is important and can open doors you may not have considered. Story 47. Avoid following generic career advice. Your situation is unique. For example, the brainwash business talk on Reddit is inapplicable to 95% of the workforce outside of large corporations. Story 48. Relationships, who you know and how you treat others, are more important than being the best at the job. Story 49. You are doing way too much. You are now too valuable to promote. Enjoy doing 3 people's jobs until you burn out and quit. Story 50. Giving your loyalty to the company while expecting it to be reciprocated. Story 51. Many people take on the wrong responsibilities. Many tasks in a company are done only so a box can be checked. For example, no one cares that you went above and beyond preparing for the audit. They only care that you passed the audit. Many of these checked boxes do not directly make the company money. They just keep you from getting into trouble. When working, your goal should be to take on tasks that are directly related to how the company makes money and that your manager's manager cares about. Avoid compliance and bureaucratic tasks. I have seen many capable workers go unnoticed because they work hard on the wrong things. Story 52. Picking the wrong one and having it outsourced or replaced by artificial intelligence. Story 53. Being the load-bearing employee. You are so efficient and responsible that you quietly absorb increasing amounts of work. You think your boss notices your exceptional performance. They do not. They notice how much weight the mule can carry before its legs buckle. The mistake is believing you will be rewarded. You will just get more work until you burn out and they replace you with 2 people and a new coffee maker. Story 54. I think it is changing people's freedom and loyalty toward those with money, because they believe being around wealthy people will make them richer. Story 55. Backstabbing your way up, you will see those people on the way down. Story 56. Pigeonholing yourself into a single job with no chance to expand your horizons. Fuck my life. Story 57. Being irreplaceable can easily mean unpromotable because they cannot replace you. Story 58. Negativity does not help. I see many people pointing out everything wrong with the company, the team, and the managers. It never serves them. Pays to be positive, even if it is insincere. Story 59. High pay for a stressful job is not worth it. Stress causes illness. Story 60. Luck is more important than being smart or working hard. Story 61. Going to human resources to resolve a workplace dispute can leave you with 2 options. Either leave or hire a lawyer. Neither option is easy, obviously, but at least a lawyer is on your side when human resources is not. Story 62. Both job hopping too frequently and staying at a job for too long have downsides. I can only speak about the technology industry. Job hopping can be very beneficial early in your career, especially for maximizing earnings and accelerating learning and skill development. That said, learn to spot green flags such as long tenures at companies. Conversely, know your value and do not stay at a company with poor pay, culture, leadership, or prospects just because it is easy. Story 63. Some employees do the job the way they think is right instead of following instructions. I have fired too many people because they believed they were smarter than their boss and did the job in what they believed was a better way. The issue is that the boss told them not to do that and instructed them to do it the way requested, that is, the way they are paid to do it, but the worker refused. Although I often agree that there are better ways to do the job, at the end of the day the boss needs you to perform your tasks as directed and to be reliable. If you constantly ignore your boss, you will face discipline or dismissal, no matter how good your intentions are. This does not apply to safety issues. You have the right to refuse unsafe work. Story 64. Having a criminal record and needing to explain it on every job application. Story 65. Changing industries often. Once you reach 20 years or more of experience, running the show requires tenure in the same industry. Story 66. I found a sugar daddy who was into being stomped in high heels. A friend of mine injured her cash cow and never made that mistake again. Story 67. Attaining power is much easier than holding on to it or proving that you are worthy of it. Story 68. Going above and beyond for a company that does not care about you. Story 69. Valuing status over connection and net worth over influence. Story 70. Only looking for or considering jobs in your local commuting area and not being open to moving when opportunity knocks can limit your prospects. My wife and I are comfortably retired now because I chose at age 55 to uproot and finish the last 10 years of my career at much higher pay, and socked away retirement money, even though we had to live apart for a few years while she obtained a transfer. I was able to more than triple my income by moving when the job opportunity presented itself. Don't get stuck in a dead-end job or tied to a house or area that limits your opportunities. Story 71. Working harder, not smarter. Have more confidence in yourself. Story 72. Getting a technician job with an engineering degree. Story 73. Staying in one organization for a long time and not realizing how different things are outside. Story 74. You must fit in with your workplace culture. Dressing too formally can seem pretentious, while dressing too casually can seem nonchalant or even slovenly. Story 75. Do not put yourself last by staying loyal to an employer. If an opportunity arises, take it. Look out for yourself. Story 76. You should change jobs every couple of years to get ahead, but changing jobs too frequently can stunt your growth. Your career story is very important when you are looking for your next role. Story 77. For me, it was taking a promotion that I did not really want, and my gut feeling told me it would not be worth the stress. Story 78. Making yourself irreplaceable to avoid being fired or laid off will also prevent you from being promoted. Story 79. I see this too often. People get used to unlimited overtime pay and do not save. Many of our newer hires, hired in the last 5 to 7 years, joined while we were booming. Long shifts of 7 to 12 hours were available, as many as you wanted and then some. Then we suddenly moved to a 40 to 48-hour week because of the tariff scare. Do not live off the maximum you can make. Live off what you comfortably make. Story 80. Think about loyalty to a company versus advocating for yourself by switching jobs to obtain a significant raise. Believe me, no company cares much about you. If you stay, you may receive a standard of living raise of about 2 to 3% if the company is feeling generous. If you have been somewhere more than a couple of years, you have developed enough experience to be worth much more than a 2 to 3% raise. Look for another job and increase your salary by 20 to 30%. Then repeat the process every 2 to 3 years. Story 81. Staying in the same job for a long time is like a frog in boiling water. Story 82. Never let serious issues slide. If someone attributes a minor mistake to you that you did not make, do not shrug it off as if it does not matter. Story 83. Taking on too much and not saying no leads to overload. Good workers are given more work. Poor performers have work taken away. Story 84. If you are not a partner or in the partnership track, you are making a lot of money for someone else while you stand outside hoping for leftovers. Story 85. They are not asking for what they want and expect managers to just know. For example, promotions and pay increases. Story 86. Sticking with the same bad job and hoping it will become better after the next quarter or the next manager. Story 87. only doing your day-to-day job and not building your experience, taking on additional responsibilities, or developing yourself for the future. Story 88. Always get the terms of pay and expected duties in writing. I had a friend who knew his job well. He heard an office position was opening up with higher pay and more responsibilities. He applied for it. They told him he would need to complete some training first. What they did not tell him was that until he completed training he would not receive any pay raise, and that while training he would still be required to perform his current job. 2 months in, he quit. Story 89. Many people receive a good starting salary, but it has little growth potential, and they become stuck in the same position for a while. Some people may like that, but others do not and realize it too late. Story 90. Do not trust human resources. They are looking out for the company's best interests, not yours. Story 91. You can get a large pay increase by moving to another company. One effective way to increase income is to change employers a few times. For example, my wife received a 70% pay increase over 5 years by changing employers twice. Story 92. Staying in the same job for too long without a promotion. Story 93. Many people make the mistake of thinking the workplace operates like a school. In school, if you study hard, follow instructions, and get good grades, you are rewarded. There is a clear system, and merit is usually recognized. Work does not function that way. It is not a meritocracy, and doing a great job on its own is rarely enough to move you forward. People who assume results will speak for themselves often get left behind, while others who are less skilled but better at managing visibility, relationships, and timing move ahead. Advancement is influenced by who sees your work, how well you align with leadership goals, and how effectively you advocate for yourself. Story 94. You can be amazing at your job, but if you do not invest time in connecting with colleagues, mentors, and industry peers, you might miss out on opportunities, support, and growth. Story 95. People who enter a career only for the money often choose cost centers. For example, human resources, expecting high pay and smooth advancement. They may also believe that non-revenue generating performance will protect them from retrenchment when market forces change. Story 96. Early in your career, you may believe you must work unsustainably long hours and be constantly available. Story 97. Loyalty. Stay for the benefits and the pay only. If you do not like either, look for a new job. Story 98. Working for free, such as doing unpaid overtime, will not benefit you. Story 99. Think of your coworkers as cops. Anything you say can and will be held against you. They are not your family or even your friends. Be very careful what you share with them. You never know who is a backstabbing ladder climber. Story 100. Staying at a job too long. I specifically mean when someone is fortunate enough to have options to quit, change, or retrain, but instead complains about it for years without taking action. Story 101. Do not assume your accomplishments will be seen or rewarded by management. Every colleague, including management, is competition. You are not at home with your family. You are in the jungle and must play by its laws. Story 102. To become a manager or team leader, you must act like one. This does not mean giving orders when you have no authority. It means keeping track of what everyone is doing, engaging in discussions, and helping out wherever you can. Story 103. Delivering too much at the beginning and setting unrealistic expectations, which can become pressure when you are not feeling your best. Story 104. I think it is changing freedom and close loyalty among wealthy people who believe that being around others will make them richer. Story 105. Starting at a low salary will set the tone for years. When promoted from within, you receive a small raise, and even when changing companies, employers will want to pay barely more than you are currently making. Story 106. Having an arrogant God complex. A lazy manager assigned all the work to one person while she sat in her office. The overworked, underpaid employee finally quit, causing upper management to realize only one person had been doing all the work. A fight broke out between the manager and her boss, and the manager was demoted. True story. Karma is so on point sometimes. Story 107. Do not stay anywhere too long unless you are being compensated extremely well. Story 108. Not putting money into savings is a mistake. Even if you are only contributing $100 per month to an individual retirement account and start at age 25, increasing contributions as you are able when your salary allows, you will be far ahead of someone who begins at age 40 contributing $500 per month. Story 109. Be personable and helpful when you can. People's impressions of you can take a while to overcome. Story 110. Most people believe they will only do work they are contractually obligated to perform under their job description. When managers consider promotions, it is easier to justify promoting someone who takes initiative and proactively finds solutions. These qualities often appear when an employee goes beyond their job description. Статья 111. Я думаю, что большинство людей, увязших в попытках построить карьеру, с ужасом осознают, что выбрали не ту профессию. За их плечами уже большой объем проделанной работы и потраченного времени. Поэтому они не могут позволить себе изменить жизнь из-за страха потерять то, что имеют. Story 112. Saying a workplace makes you feel less than may be acceptable for stepping stone jobs, but workplaces where you want to build a career should empower even interns. Story 113. People do not save nearly enough for retirement, at least in the United States. I invest 30% of my gross pay, but I know many of my coworkers save less than 5%. I do not know what they are going to do as they get older. Story 114. As a teenager, I talked back to the boss while his brother was visiting. My career with them did not last much longer. Story 115. The number of people who list random grievances all the time, say they will look for work elsewhere, and then act surprised when they are passed up for promotions blows my mind. Story 116. Quiet quitting is not the same as working yourself to the bone or overextending yourself. But if you are doing the absolute bare minimum, do not be surprised if you are among the first to be let go when layoffs start. You do not need to work non-stop to make yourself indispensable. You need to pick up the right skills. I always try to identify the weak point in my department and become skilled in that area. That strategy worked well for me in my career. Story 117. Learn when it is the right time to move from one company to another. Story 118. Burning bridges. You never know who you will meet later. Story 119. Getting into a job that has not been researched and is only embellished on social media. Story 120. This advice is for young people. Wasting time at college when it is not something you want to do is the biggest mistake. Choosing a field because it pays well rather than because you would enjoy it is another common error. Story 121. Staying in a job because it feels safe only to realize you have traded decades of potential for comfort. Story 122. Not negotiating your first salary sets the bar for years. Story 123. Your coworkers are not your friends. Do not tell them anything private or share gossip. Can lead to your downfall. Story 124. One major career mistake many people do not realize until it is too late is staying too long in roles that do not challenge them, confusing comfort with security. It may feel safe to remain in a predictable job that pays the bills or has good benefits, but over time this can cause skill stagnation and limit opportunities. Story 125. Confusing busyness with progress. Filling your day with tasks and meetings feels productive, but if you are not building skills, expanding influence, or delivering measurable impact, you will plateau. Many realize years later they have been running hard in place. Story 126. Making a career change has more to it than a personal perception of the work. I worked in nursing and I love the work and, most of the time, the people as well. When an occupation turns on itself, you have to rethink the situation. I found that those in charge in nursing started to decide that what is important in nursing care was now second class and something else was more important to consider. Now, I am not saying it is unsafe to get medical care. Most places are perfectly safe and you have very little to worry about. From my experience in nursing, you can only fight it for so long. In some ways it is getting better, but I needed to move on. Story 127. Your career changes sometime after 40. It is subtle, but gradually you go from young and vital to being viewed as old and a liability. I was not prepared. I have always worked long hours and been a top performer. Nothing has changed. I have not slowed down, but most companies do not want older workers. Story 128. Confusing loyalty with progress. Staying at a job that doesn't value you because you think it will pay off someday. Story 129. Companies and organizations frequently make irrational decisions that are not in the company's best interest. These decisions are demonstrably unwise, and everyone executing the strategy will know it. Layoffs often remove top performers while keeping people who do little or nothing. Executives can be brilliant, but they can also make very poor decisions. Some people are promoted not because of skill and hard work, but because of luck, manipulation, or other factors. When they become responsible for measurable results with no excuses, such as profit, the skills that got them there may no longer be valuable. If you look at the executives above you and think you could do their job better, you might be right, but you might also be deluded. It is hard to know. Story 130. Almost no one knows what you do every day. You should not assume your company knows your value. Story 131. Being too good at your job can prevent you from being promoted. Employers often find it easier to hire someone else for the role than to promote you. Story 132. Not upskilling while you are in your current position can be risky. If you do not upskill, where does that leave you if there is a layoff? I had to learn this the hard way. Story 133. Everyone is replaceable. Story 134. Put yourself first. Never let loyalty keep you from pursuing new opportunities and challenges. Story 135. Do not accept jobs you cannot afford to walk away from. If someone is paying you far more than you are worth, they are doing that for a reason, and it is never good. Story 136. Let me put it more simply. The 1980s were when the right began to destroy unions and weaken workers' rights. Story 137. Finishing your work more quickly than required does not earn you praise. It only gets you more work. Story 138. I am living this right now. I am on medical leave because of my job. Focus on your life and your health. I was laid off earlier this year, then rehired, and I am mentally and physically broken. They will probably lay me off during my leave. You are always number one. Put yourself first. Story 139. I did not try to move to a different department while I was at the junior level. Now that I am a senior in my department, I cannot change functions and have reached the highest available level, so I cannot grow further. Story 140. You were doing really well, then married someone lazy and lost everything you had worked for. Story 141. Doing unhealthy things includes not getting enough sleep, eating poorly, not moving enough, being highly stressed, and not drinking enough water. People often do these things habitually. If you suddenly realize you are doing them or someone helps you see them, it usually means the harm is already done and it has finally gotten your attention. Story 142. You might think people will notice and reward you for keeping your head down and doing your job well. Someone who takes shortcuts but creates the appearance of competence and productivity will move up much faster than the person who is quietly excellent. Being sociable will serve you far better than simply doing your job well. I say this as a highly competent introvert. Story 143. I worked at too many firms where if you stopped you would lose your head, yet 90% of the workforce was slacking. One job involved 15-inch steel discs, over 1 inch thick. I had to skim the faces, but there were problems. I had to make the tool and the jaws, and there were none available. They wanted 400 discs skimmed and sent on, so I set to and did the lot in 5 hours, finishing just after our dinner break. The boss complained to my manager that I was taking too long. I grabbed a finished disc, slapped it on the table, and told him to lift it 400 times. Actually 800 in and out, and watched him struggle to lift it once. He thought it was aluminum, not steel. 3 months later, we had redundancies, and I was the first to go. Point to remember. Never put yourself out for anyone. Fuck them. They do not know and do not care. The firm I worked for is getting robot arms to do the job, so the person only needs to load and pack. I am retired now, and I do not give a damn. Story 144. Not taking advantage of paid time off, especially if you have use or lose days. I lost a lot last year because I did not realize I was losing those days. Story 145. Not trusting your gut when you suspect the company or your job may be in trouble, and trying to stick it out. Story 146. The importance of social navigation over professional competence surprised me when it kept a new role out of my grasp. I had thought being useful would excuse my habits, and I still feel compelled to work. But as someone once said, your family are the only people who will remember that you worked late. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.